Namaste. Today I'm going to show you how to make a mala. I'm actually getting ready to go to temple and have picked some flowers that I'm going to take with me for the malas that I will make there tonight. But before I leave, I wanted to make a mala for Lord Krishna and show you how to do it. I've already made one side in order to shorten the length of this. And in order to start that, the best way to approach it is to make it in two pieces when it's going to be a longer mala, which it will be, to extend from one side of the picture down to the center of the picture. And when you measure your thread, you should measure it longer than what it is you're going to intend to use. And I planned this. I didn't just say, okay, let's just throw the flowers on. I looked at it and made the decision to do the flowers to the side, to mix the white in, which are petals, and then the red, the dark, dark red, those are roses. And I'm going to make the other side so you can see how I did it. I've already got my thread ready. And we're going to start with these, which are from my rhododendron bushes outside. The thing to do is to work with the flowers that you have. If you're at home, you work with what's in your garden, or if you have the money to go buy them, you go buy them. If you're at temple, you work with whatever people have brought. And when you're doing that, you need to kind of take them, which is what I always do, and I put them in different bowls with different flowers. Here's the white petals. These are actually from peonies. Here's the roses, and then these are the rhododendrons, which are here next to me. And I'm not doing them up and down, which is one way to do it, and is also quite a beautiful look. What I'm doing is I'm actually threading the flower from the side. And I'm going to thread a bunch of these on here in order to get the bottom part of what I had just showed you a moment ago. It's better to put more than less unless you don't have them. So you always have to work with whatever flowers come in that night. I've been making malas at the mission, at the Chinmay mission, for about 6 years now, every Monday night, which it's a Monday right now, and I'll be going to temple in a little while to make the malas for Lord Shiva. So every Monday for years now I've been making malas for Lord Shiva, for the linga, and a smaller one for Lord Ganesha. So I've had a lot of experience making all different kinds of malas with all different kinds of flowers. And so that's why I decided, because a lot of times the women will come in and they'll ask me how to do it, or they'll watch and try and learn. So I decided it would be a good idea to just make a video of how to make the malas. So I think I've got enough of these, and what I'm going to do is hold the bottom of it and the side and look up at it and say, okay, that looks nice. And what I always do is I compare it with the other side. If I'm working on a two-sided mala, I compare it and say, okay, they look like they're about right. So now it's time to move to the petals. Petals are great for making malas. I love them because sometimes, for example, if you're using carnations, they have a lot of green at the bottom of the bud. And if you put petals on one side of them, that often hides the green so that you mostly see flowers. Roses are great for petals, but that's not what I'm using. I'm actually using the petals from the peony, which is going to be part of the ball or pendant of this particular mala. And I'm folding some of them because some of them are kind of big, actually. You don't have to fold them if they're not that big. You can just use them in their full size. But if they're big, you fold them, and that creates a nice, uneven, but almost like a flower of its own kind of a look. So I think I have enough of those, and now I'm going to put the roses. You do have to be careful, spearing them from the bottom, going through the little bud. And if you lose a flower, you rip it off and just use the petals from it for the puja itself, which is one of the things you have to consider. If you're making malas or preparing the flowers for the puja, you have to remember that you're going to provide Panditji with flowers, petals, and malas. So you have to plan. You can't, sometimes people come in and there's all these beautiful flowers and you want to use all the flowers. Well, you can't do that because then Panditji has nothing for the puja itself. So you have to plan. And what I usually do is I make my malas first and I pick the flowers that I want for the mala and leave, as I'm going along, flowers for the puja. And sometimes if I have especially nice flowers, I will put those aside, knowing that they're going to be by themselves, arranged around the deity, which in this case is Lord Shiva. You have to be careful when you're making your mala too, that you don't push the flowers down so that they come off of one end of the thread, which this was getting ready to do. So now I'm going to measure this again and say to myself, okay, it looks about right, and I'm ready in my design to put more of these beautiful rhododendrons on. And again, I'm spearing them right through the side. Go right through the flower. Don't be afraid to put the needle through the flower. By the way, I do not know how to tie a mala. I started to learn once, and I realized almost immediately as I was doing it that it takes a lot longer. And if you're at temple and you've got, in my case, 3 malas to make, and sometimes there are other women there who help, and sometimes there's no one else who really knows how to make a mala, and they'll help out with making petals and other such things, but the malas are my responsibility. If I had to tie them, I would never be able to get them done in time. Panditji would be standing there looking at me, and I would have no mala ready. So, stitching is good. And in fact, most of the women at temple also stitch. There's very few who even know, by my observations, how to tie a mala. Okay, what I'm doing right now is comparing my sides again, and they look about even. So now I'm going to move on again. I'm going to add one more flower just because I feel like I want one more flower on there. So I'm going to add this one flower, and then I'm going to put more of the white petals like I did on the other one. Kind of wish I'd put more, but I didn't. And you know, you do whatever comes naturally at that moment. And the important thing is that when you're making the mala, you're trying to make a beautiful mala for the Lord. And that's the most important thing, is that's what you want to do. And if that's what you want to do, I guarantee you it will come out beautiful. But sometimes you have to take the time to do it, and you have to look at it and plan your flowers. So, I think this should be enough petals for this look that I want to get here. And then I'm going to add more roses on the top, which is what I did on the other one. Again, going through the little bud, and being careful to not knock too many petals off in the process. And if you do so, you knock a few petals off. You put them in the petal ball. Okay, that one's going through good. Now see, I lost some petals, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. That's one of the reasons you use more than one flower. And if you find that you've lost too many petals, rip the flower off. Don't worry about ripping a flower off. Now what I did with this one is I put 3 roses, and then I had some other roses that weren't completely opened, which I thought were very pretty. So instead of putting a fully open rose at the top, I'm going to, one last rose, put like it's not a rosebud because it's starting to open, but it's not a completely open rose either. So it has a nice little top end for the mala. Now let me pull on this thread again because we don't want to do it. And this is actually shorter than it needs to be, but I'm going to spread the flowers out. Okay, so I cut the thread off, and I've got 2 sides. Now, what I always do with my malas is I always tie the bottom first, and that's for the reason we were just discussing, that you don't want your flowers to fall off. So I always take the bottom pieces and twist them around in a knot. Actually, I do more than 1 knot. For some reason, I like to do 3. So I always do 3 knots down here. And you want to make sure that your knot is a good knot, because when Panditji picks it up and starts hanging it on the deity, well, let's face it, you don't want it to fall apart. And I mean, that happened to me once, and I can tell you it did not happen again.